reading from Isaiah. Listen to me, you that pursue righteousness, you that seek the Lord. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham your father and to Sarah who bore you. For he was but one when I called him, but I blessed him and made him many. For the Lord will comfort Zion, he will comfort all her waste places, and will make her wilderness like Eden, her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the voice of song. Listen to me, my people, and give heed to me, my nation. For a teaching will go out from me, and my justice for a light to the peoples. I will bring near my deliverance swiftly. My salvation has gone out, and my arms will rule the people. The coastlands wait for me, and for my arm they hope. Lift up your eyes to the heavens, and look at the earth beneath. For the heavens will vanish like smoke, the earth will wear out like a garment, and those who live on it will die like gnats. But my salvation will be forever, and my deliverance will never be ended. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The psalm appointed for today is Psalm 138. 138. Let us read in unison. Psalm 138. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods I will sing your praise. I will bow down toward your holy temple and praise your name, because of your love and faithfulness. For you have glorified your name, and your word above all things. When I called, you answered me. You increased my strength within me. All the kings of the earth will praise you. When they have heard the words of your mouth, they will sing of the ways of the Lord and praise the glory of the Lord. The Lord is kind, he cares for the lowly. He perceives the haughty from afar. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you keep me faithful. You set forth your hand against the fury of my enemies. Your right hand shall save me. The Lord will make good his purpose for me. O Lord, your love endures forever. Do not abandon the works of your hands.
The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
A parishioner sent me a clip from the series The Vicar of Dibley. And in this particular clip, there's a congregation gathered in the nave and sanctuary of a typical English Gothic church. And the service is a wedding. and everyone in that place is bedecked with their finest clothes, as well as the bride and groom are standing in front of the vicar. And the service is going on smoothly, and everybody is so happy. And the vicar of Dibley asks, "Can anybody show just cause why these two people cannot be married?" And usually that's just a formality, but of course this is kind of a comedy. And so a woman who is bedecked in fine clothes stands up in the back of the church and says, I do. He's already married." And she comes forward waving a piece of paper. "I'm his wife. He's married, and I can prove it." Well, the vicar's face falls, and she looks as if she could drop through the floor. The bride looks as if she could slap the groom. The groom looks perplexed and shocked and wonders what's going on. The congregation has a collective gasp, also wondering what's going on. The groom turns around to face his accuser, and the woman says, Oh, I'm in the wrong church. Wrong church. We often sometimes can feel we're in the wrong church. I once joked that I thought my job as the rector of a congregation was more like a manager of a hotel, checking people in and checking people out. Sometimes things just don't mesh. People don't know, or the individual doesn't know why it doesn't mesh. There's just something in their gut that makes them feel as if things are out of kilter, that something's not right for them. James Allison, who is a theologian and author and a priest, writes in the Christian Century about how he grew up in an evangelical Anglican church. His parents were converts. His father was extremely strict. His mother was hyper-religious, as he put it, and thought that demons and other things were very real in their lives. He was such a rational, thoughtful thinker that at the age of 8, they sent him away to boarding school to straighten him out. It was there at boarding school that he began to find himself. But it wasn't until college where he majored in Spanish and he went to Latin America to study that language that he really found his spiritual roots. And he became part of the Roman Catholic Church. The Messiah that he once followed was very dry and not real. It was a Messiah that he pretended to follow. Once he found his home, his Messiah became real, flesh and blood. I share these illustrations with you because in the day's gospel from Matthew, we have Jesus asking his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" Unlike school children at the school who know the answers, they all put up their hands and they wave and I know. People say you're Moses. People say you're Elijah. People say you're a famous prophet. But then Jesus asked them a real question. Who do you say that I am? And it was Peter who went to the head of the class and said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." But even when we proclaim that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean to you and me? What does that really mean? Because over the course of the centuries, the church has called Jesus by many different names. Rabbi, Good Shepherd, Prince of Peace, the Cosmic Christ, Christ the King of Kings, and all those different descriptions of Jesus, all those different names, gives us a different understanding of who Jesus is for us in our daily lives and spiritual selves. So the question remains, who do people say that I am? For us who live here today in the 21st century, we have to figure that one out for ourselves once again. In the midst of COVID, we can see that part of knowing who Jesus is gathering together in community. I am thankful personally for online ministries I'm thankful that for instance, we can go to our computer on Zoom and we can see one of ourselves even though we're not next to one another. But there's something about worshiping on Zoom. There's something about having Bible study on Zoom that is to me like drinking a diet soda. It's there. It's real in and of itself, but it's not the real thing. If I'm going to drink a soda, if I'm going to drink a Pepsi or Coke or whatever my taste buds want me to taste, I want sugar, by God. I want real sugar. And that's how I feel about worship. It's when we gather together here today as a group that we have real worship. Because worship itself is our expression that God is transcendent and immanent, that He's in this group together. It's not just about the body and blood of Christ. It's about the body and blood of Christ in one another, the figure of Christ in us, that brings us together and makes us a whole family as we worship. Jesus says to Peter, "You are the rock on which this church is founded." But the reality is, as their ministry went on, all the disciples became rocks of the church. It wasn't just one rock that made the church great. It was many rocks. And you and I are also the rocks of the church. For it's through our ministries to one another and to the world, through our bringing in school supplies and blessing boxes and offerings in the plate, that we become that transcendent, immanent part of God in the world. Our verbal prayers have no meaning in a sense if we do not yoke them to something that happens in the world around us. Our prayers connect us to God, who then in turn connects us to the world around us. And it's through that joint prayer and connectedness that Christ can be seen in the world. That's why blessing boxes are so important. That's why school supplies are so important. Because it allows us to touch another human being, somebody whom we don't know, and if we met them, might not even like. It doesn't matter, because we're ministering to the Christ who is in that person, and we are serving them as the Christ who is in us. Most mornings, my wife and I take a walk down into the center of the new North Augusta. And part of that is going through the brick ponds. And the brick ponds are those areas that were carved out when there was a brick factory there in the 1900s. And they're now ponds which support habitat, natural habitat. And part of that pond system are waterfalls that North Augusta constructed. And recently those waterfalls have been turned off so they could repair them and make them more beautiful. And now that they're running again, we see that they added all these beautiful rocks that make the waterfalls more beautiful than ever. And that's you and me. We are the rocks of the church, which make this church beautiful. It's not just one rock alone. It's all of us together who make the Church of the Ridge be the Church of the Ridge. If you and I would have the opportunity to sit down together, and discuss who the Messiah is for us, and begin to discuss our definitions and our understandings of who this Messiah is, we would come up with vastly different understandings. But you know what? That's been true throughout history. Do you know what? I don't think God cares. Do you know what? What's important is that we have an understanding of who the Messiah is for us and are willing to share it with others. What unites us is our common belief that Jesus is the Messiah. Beyond that, I don't think things matter much. But the question for you and me that we need to ask ourselves is still the same one that Jesus asked his disciples. Who do you say that I am? How we answer that will dictate how we minister to the world.